4 years, they were a fixture on our screens, their love story unfolding against the backdrop of the iconic Roloff Farms. Matt Roloff, the patriarch of the Little People, Big World Dynasty, and Caryn Chandler, his partner and former farm manager. Their journey from colleagues to companions to fiancés captivated millions. They were building a new life, a new home, and what seemed like a solid future. But in the summer of 2025, the fairy tale came to an abrupt end. The engagement was off, the dream home was in limbo, and the carefully curated image of a happy couple was shattered. Rumors began to fly, with whispers of cheating, secret new lovers, and a dramatic behind-the-scenes betrayal. The title of this video reflects the storm of speculation that erupted online. Big cheat, Caryn Chandler's new boyfriend, Matt Roloff alone. But is there any truth to these explosive claims? Today, we're going to unravel the complicated truth behind the shocking split of Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler. We'll delve into the timeline of their relationship, examine the cracks that began to show, and analyze the social media clues that hinted at trouble in paradise. We'll also explore what's next for Matt and Caryn, and what this means for the future of the Roloff family and the beloved show that brought them into our homes. This is the real story of a relationship that started in the public eye and ended in a firestorm of speculation. To understand the end of the story, we have to go back to the beginning. For over 2 decades, Matt Roloff's life was intertwined with his now ex-wife, Amy Roloff. Their marriage, their children, and their life on Roloff Farms were the heart of Little People, Big World. Caryn Chandler was a familiar face in the background, a dedicated employee who, over time, became an integral part of the farm's operations. A new chapter began. In 2017, Matt confirmed that his friendship with Caryn had blossomed into something more. The transition was not without its challenges. The lines between employer and employee, and friend and partner, had blurred, creating a complex dynamic that played out on our television screens. For many viewers, Matt and Caryn's relationship was a breath of fresh air. They seemed genuinely happy, their partnership built on a foundation of mutual respect and a shared love for the farm. Caryn was often seen as a stabilizing force in Matt's life, someone who understood his passion for his work and his vision for the future of Roloff Farms. Their love story culminated in a highly anticipated engagement in April 2023. Matt popped the question in the backyard of their shared Arizona home, a symbol of their commitment to building a life together, away from the prying eyes of the public and the lingering ghosts of the past. They spoke of a simple yet elegant wedding, a celebration of their love and the start of their forever. But even as they planned their future, subtle signs of trouble were beginning to emerge. The once solid foundation of their relationship was starting to show cracks, and the pressures of their public life, coupled with unresolved family tensions, began to take their toll. One of the most significant challenges Matt and Caryn faced was the lingering presence of Matt's past. His relationship with his ex-wife, Amy, while amicable, was a constant source of underlying tension. Caryn, thrust into a world where her partner's ex-wife was still a prominent figure, often found herself in an uncomfortable position. The show often documented awkward encounters and conversations, revealing the delicate balancing act Caryn had to perform. While she and Amy were civil, there was an undeniable undercurrent of unease. For Caryn, moving forward into a new life with Matt was made more complicated by the fact that his old life was still very much a part of his present. Roloff Farms, the very place that brought them together, also became a source of significant conflict. The ongoing saga of the farm's ownership and future created a deep rift within the Roloff family, and Caryn found herself caught in the crossfire. The decision not to sell a portion of the farm to his sons, Zach and Jeremy, led to a painful estrangement. Caryn, as Matt's partner, was seen by some as a contributing factor in these family disputes. Whether or not this perception was fair, it undoubtedly added another layer of stress to their relationship. The dream of a harmonious, blended family life on the farm was slowly slipping away. Perhaps the most telling sign of their impending split was the perpetually postponed wedding. After their engagement, the couple spoke of a 2024 wedding, But as the months rolled by, their plans remained vague. While Caryn seemed to lean towards a more intimate affair, this difference in vision, while seemingly minor, may have been indicative of a deeper disconnect. The wedding, which should have been a joyful milestone to look forward to, instead became a symbol of their inability to get on the same page. On a quiet Tuesday in July 2025, the news that many had begun to suspect was finally confirmed. In a carefully worded Instagram post, Matt Roloff announced that he and Caryn Chandler had decided to part ways and end their engagement. The announcement sent shockwaves through the Little People, Big World fanbase. While some had seen the writing on the wall, the finality of the news was still a surprise. Matt's post emphasized that the decision was amicable, a mutual parting of ways. But as the dust began to settle, a different narrative began to emerge. Within days of the official announcement, anonymous sources began to speak to tabloids and entertainment news outlets. These insiders, claiming to be close to the Roloff family, painted a picture that was far from the amicable split Matt had described. According to these reports, it was Caryn who had initiated the breakup. She was reportedly tired of the constant family drama, the unresolved issues with Matt's children, and the feeling that she was always second best to the legacy of the Roloff family. These sources claimed that the decision was not mutual, but rather a heartbreaking ultimatum from Caryn. In the age of social media, silence can often speak volumes. In the weeks and months leading up to the breakup, eagle-eyed fans noticed a significant decrease in the number of photos and posts featuring Matt and Caryn together. Caryn, who had once been a regular presence on Matt's social media, seemed to have all but disappeared. This social media silence, coupled with the insider reports, fueled speculation that the breakup had been a long time coming. The carefully constructed image of a happy couple had been crumbling for months, and the official announcement was simply the final, inevitable nail in the coffin. Now, let's address the most explosive rumors that have been circulating online, the allegations of cheating and the whispers of a new man in Caryn's life. It's a narrative that's been fueled by clickbait headlines and unsubstantiated gossip. But is there any evidence to support these claims? The short answer is no. Despite the rampant speculation, there has been no credible evidence to suggest that infidelity played a role in Matt and Caryn's breakup. The insider sources, while offering details about the emotional turmoil of the split, have not mentioned any instances of cheating. It's a common and unfortunate reality of celebrity breakups that accusations of cheating are often the first and most sensationalized explanation. However, in the case of Matt and Caryn, the more likely culprits are the complex and long-standing issues that we've already discussed: family drama, the weight of the past, and a fundamental difference in their desires for the future. The rumors of a new boyfriend for Caryn are equally unfounded. In the aftermath of the breakup, Caryn has maintained a very low public profile. There have been no sightings of her with a new partner, no social media posts hinting at a new romance, and no credible reports to suggest that she has moved on with someone else. It's important to remember that Caryn is a private citizen who was thrust into the public eye through her relationship with Matt. The end of a long-term engagement is a difficult and painful experience, and it's only natural that she would want to retreat from the spotlight to heal and process this major life change. The narrative of a new boyfriend seems to be a product of pure speculation, a way to add more drama to a story that is already emotionally charged. The idea of Matt Roloff being alone is a powerful and evocative image, and in many ways it's true. He is now single after a long and public relationship. However, it's also important to remember that he is surrounded by a large and loving family, even with the existing tensions. In the wake of the breakup, Matt has been focusing on his family and his work on the farm. His social media has been filled with pictures of his grandchildren, updates on his latest projects, and reflections on his life. While he may be navigating a new chapter of singledom, he is far from truly alone. With the end of Matt and Caryn's relationship, a new chapter begins for both of them and for the Roloff family as a whole. What does the future hold for these two individuals who once planned to spend the rest of their lives together? For Matt, the future is likely to be centered around Roloff Farms. His passion for the property is undeniable, and it will continue to be his primary focus. He will undoubtedly continue to host the annual pumpkin season, a tradition that has become a cornerstone of the Roloff legacy. The question of the farm's long-term future remains. Will Matt ever find a way to pass the torch to the next generation, or will the farm be his legacy alone? The end of his relationship with Caryn may force him to reevaluate his priorities and what he truly wants for the future of the family business. For Caryn, the future is less certain, at least in the public eye. She has retreated from the spotlight, and it's unclear what her next steps will be. Will she return to a quiet, private life away from the cameras and the constant scrutiny? Or will she find a new path, a new career, and a new life for herself? Whatever she chooses to do, it's clear that Caryn is a strong and independent woman. She navigated a complex and often challenging public relationship for years, and she will undoubtedly land on her feet. Her future may be private, but that doesn't mean it won't be bright. The breakup of Matt and Caryn also coincides with the end of an era for Little People, Big World. With Zach and Tori Roloff's departure from the show, and no official word on a new season, it seems that the beloved reality series may have finally come to an end after 25 seasons. For over a decade, the Roloff family invited us into their homes and their lives. We watched their children grow up, celebrated their triumphs, and mourned their losses. The show broke new ground in its representation of little people and started important conversations about family, love, and perseverance. While the final chapter of the Roloff family saga may have been a painful one, the legacy of the show and the impact it had on millions of viewers will not be forgotten. The story of Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler is a cautionary tale about the complexities of love, family, and life in the public eye. It's a story that reminds us that behind the curated social media posts and the carefully edited reality show scenes, there are real people with real emotions and real challenges. The rumors of cheating and secret new lovers may make for dramatic headlines, but the truth, as is often the case, is far more nuanced and far more human. This was not a story of a big cheat or a new boyfriend. It was the story of a relationship that, for a multitude of reasons, simply ran its course. The story of Matt and Caryn's breakup isn't just about two people. It's about the seismic shifts that occurred within an entire family, a dynasty built on reality television. To truly grasp why their future together became impossible, we must examine the other critical relationships that fractured along the way. The most significant of these was the painful and public exodus of a son who was once considered the heir apparent to the Roloff kingdom, Zach Roloff. For 25 seasons, Zach Roloff was the heart and soul of Little People, Big World alongside his parents. Viewers watched him navigate the challenges of achondroplasia, fall in love, and become a devoted husband and father. His wife, Tori, with her down-to-earth charm and candid honesty, quickly became a fan favorite. Together, they represented the future of the Roloff family, the next generation poised to carry on the legacy. Their life, deeply rooted in the communities surrounding Roloff Farms, seemed set in stone. The dream, as is so often the case, collided with the harsh reality of business and family dynamics. The central point of contention was, and always had been, the farm. For years, Matt had publicly stated his desire for one of his children to buy into the property. Zach and Tori, with their young family, were the most logical candidates. They made an offer, hoping to raise their children on the same land where Zach grew up. But the negotiations fell apart in a spectacular and heartbreaking fashion. In 2021, the conflict that had been simmering behind the scenes erupted into public view. Matt Roloff officially put the north side of the farm, including the iconic family home, on the market for $4 million. This move came after failed negotiations with both Jeremy and Zach. In a scathing public comment on Instagram, Zach didn't hold back, accusing his father of manipulating the narrative. This post is a scare tactic, and my dad is manipulating the narrative. Once again, like he has for most of his life, not taking responsibility for his own actions and blaming others, dragging the family drama that he created, and then manipulate the fan base to make himself come out okay. This post is extremely misguided and false. My dad is changing the narrative, a narrative that has all been created by him. These were not the words of a minor disagreement. This was a raw, public cry of betrayal from a son to his father. Tori later elaborated on their podcast, Raising Heights, explaining their side of the story. They felt the price was not based on a family discount, but on what Matt believed he could get from a stranger, and that the negotiations were not conducted in good faith. They felt their father chose money over legacy. What we're witnessing here is a classic founder's dilemma. The patriarch, Matt, has built this empire, and it's so deeply intertwined with his identity that letting go feels like a form of death. He wants the legacy to continue, but only on his exact terms. From Zach's perspective, he's not just buying a piece of property, he's trying to buy into his own heritage. When that heritage comes with a price tag he deems unfair and a negotiation process he feels is disrespectful, it's perceived as a rejection of him as a son, not just as a business partner. So, where did Caryn fit into this family-shattering feud? Officially, both sides claimed she was not a direct part of the business negotiations. However, her position as Matt's partner made her an undeniable presence in the conflict. In episodes of Little People, Big World, Tori and Zach made it clear that the dynamic had changed. Tori famously stated in one episode that the family get-togethers were no longer the same, that the joy was gone, and that they were only seeing Matt and Caryn for the sake of the grandchildren. It was clear that Caryn, by extension of her partnership with Matt, was now on the other side of a deep chasm. Fans were quick to point out that Caryn had been a farm employee for years. She knew the business inside and out. It's highly unlikely that Matt, who valued her opinion immensely, didn't consult with her about the valuation and sale of the property. While she may not have been in the room for the final, explosive arguments, her influence was undoubtedly felt. To Zach and Tori, she was no longer just Caryn, a family friend. She was part of a united front with their father, a front they felt was working against them. This perception, whether fair or not, permanently damaged her relationship with that side of the family. The dream of being a happy, blended family matriarch was effectively over. The fallout from the farm deal was swift and decisive. In late 2021, Zach and Tori did the unthinkable. They left Oregon. They bought a new home in Battleground, Washington, an hour away from the farm that was once the center of their universe. This physical distance was a clear symbol of the emotional distance that now existed between them and Matt. Their departure marked the beginning of the end for the show as fans knew it. The final seasons felt fractured, with the family filming separately and the tension palpable. In early 2024, Zach and Tori made the official announcement. They were done with Little People, Big World. They were stepping away from the show that had defined their lives to protect their peace and raise their children outside of the public eye and away from the family drama. This decision had a profound impact. It not only signaled the end of the show's original premise, but also placed immense pressure on Matt and Caryn's relationship. The estrangement from Zach, Tori, and his grandchildren was a source of deep pain for Matt. And for Caryn, it meant her future with Matt would be one permanently marked by this family schism. She was the partner of a man whose actions had led to a deep rift with his son. That is a heavy burden for any relationship to bear, and it was undoubtedly one of the major cracks in their foundation that eventually led to its collapse. For over 2 decades, the Roloff family saga played out not just on television, but in the sprawling, often ruthless, court of public opinion. Every action, every word, every social media post was dissected by millions of fans, critics, and online sleuths. This intense scrutiny created a pressure cooker environment that can warp reality and fuel narratives that may or may not be true. In the case of Matt and Caryn, the online fandom became a character in their story, one that actively shaped the perception of their relationship and its eventual demise. From the moment Matt and Caryn's relationship became public, the online narrative was often framed in a simplistic, almost biblical dichotomy: Saint Amy versus Sinner Caryn. Amy, the scorned wife who had dedicated her life to her family and the farm, was often portrayed as a victim, a martyr. Caryn, on the other hand, was cast in the role of the other woman, the calculating employee who swooped in after the divorce. This narrative persisted for years, Despite the fact that both Matt and Amy have stated their marriage was over long before Caryn was in the romantic picture. Amy herself acknowledged the awkwardness, stating in her book, A Little Me, that she felt betrayed by the relationship between her ex-husband and their longtime employee. This admission was all the fuel the Sinner Caryn narrative needed. Online communities, especially fandoms, thrive on creating simple, easy-to-digest narratives with clear heroes and villains. It's a form of cognitive ease. It's much harder to accept the messy, nuanced truth that a long-term marriage ended due to 1,000 small cuts and that a new relationship formed in its wake. It's far easier to cast Caryn as the villainous homewrecker and Amy as the virtuous wife. This creates a compelling story, but it's a work of fiction based on snippets of a heavily edited reality show. For Caryn, this meant that for 7 years, she was constantly fighting against a negative public perception. Every perceived misstep was seen as proof of her manipulative nature. When the farm deal with Zach fell through, many fans didn't see a complex business negotiation. They saw Caryn whispering in Matt's ear, securing her own financial future at the expense of his children. This constant barrage of negativity would be exhausting for anyone and undoubtedly contributed to her reported desire to step away from the public life that came with being engaged to Matt Roloff. Beyond the broad narratives, dedicated online forums, particularly the Little People, Big World subreddit, became hubs for microanalysis. Users on these forums would act as digital detectives, scrutinizing every detail for clues of discord. Long before the official breakup announcement, these communities were sounding the alarm. They tracked the frequency of their social media posts together. They analyzed the guest list for family events. They noticed that talk of the wedding had completely ceased. While some of their theories were wild speculation, their collective observations often painted a surprisingly accurate picture of a relationship in decline. This created a bizarre feedback loop. The couple, likely aware of the online scrutiny, might have tried to project an image of unity, which fans would then dissect as fake or forced. Their silence, on the other hand, was interpreted as definitive proof of a split. They were trapped in a panopticon of their own making. This intense, unblinking gaze of the public eye leaves no room for a relationship to breathe or to struggle in private. Every crack is magnified and exposed, adding immense pressure to an already strained situation. So how did we get from relationship in trouble to the explosive big cheat and new boyfriend narrative that inspired the title of this very video? It's a case study in how information, or misinformation, spreads in the digital age. It starts with the confirmed breakup. That's the fact. Then, insider sources tell tabloids it was Caryn who ended it. That's the first layer of narrative. The public then asks, why would she leave? The simplest, most dramatic answer is often infidelity. A YouTube channel or a gossip blog will then post a video with a title like, Caryn Chandler's secret new man revealed, even with zero evidence. This is the speculation. That video gets thousands of views, and the speculation is then reported by other outlets as a rumor. The rumor is then discussed in Reddit threads and on Facebook pages as a possibility. Within 48 hours, a baseless speculation has transformed into a widely circulated rumor that many people accept as a potential truth. And that is precisely what happened here. There has never been a shred of credible evidence that Caryn cheated or that she left Matt for a new boyfriend. The rumor was born from the narrative vacuum created by their public but private breakup. It was a story created by the public, for the public, because it was more exciting than the mundane and painful truth that a couple, under immense internal and external pressure, simply fell out of love. As the story of Matt and Caryn's relationship was unraveling, another Roloff romance was thriving, providing a fascinating and stark contrast. In August of 2021, Amy Roloff married Chris Marek in a beautiful ceremony right on Roloff Farms. The success and stability of their union throws the challenges of the Matt and Caryn dynamic into sharp relief. By examining why Amy and Chris's relationship works, we can better understand why Matt and Caryn's failed. One of the most significant differences lies in how Chris Marek integrated into the complex Roloff family system. From the beginning, Chris projected an air of calm confidence. He was not there to replace Matt or to take over the farm. He was there for Amy. Chris managed to build a bridge, not just to Amy's children, but to Matt himself. Their relationship is not one of deep friendship, but of mutual respect. Chris understood the boundaries. He didn't involve himself in the farm business or the family disputes. He was a supportive partner to Amy, a friendly figure to her children, and a neutral party in the ongoing Roloff drama. Caryn, through no fault of her own, was in a much more complicated position. Her history as a longtime farm employee meant she was already deeply enmeshed in the family's business and history. She couldn't be a neutral observer because she had been an active participant. When she transitioned from employee to partner, those old lines of communication and power dynamics didn't just disappear. This pre-existing history made it nearly impossible for her to integrate as seamlessly as Chris did. Another key difference is that Amy and Chris built a life for themselves that was distinctly separate from Roloff Farms. While they married on the farm, they live in their own home miles away. Their adventures, their hobbies, and their social life are their own. The farm is a place they visit, a part of their history, but it is not the center of their universe. For Matt and Caryn, the farm was everything. Their dream home was being built on its soil. Their social life often revolved around farm events. Their shared project, their passion, and their primary source of conflict were all located on that same 100-acre plot of land. This lack of separation meant there was no escape. When tensions arose over the farm, it infected every aspect of their life together because their life was the farm. They didn't have a neutral ground to retreat to, a shared space that was free from the ghosts of the past and the pressures of the family business. Finally, there is the simple fact of the wedding itself. Amy and Chris got engaged and, within a reasonable time frame, they got married. They set a date, made plans, and followed through. Their wedding was a clear statement of their commitment and the beginning of a new, definitive chapter. As we discussed earlier, Matt and Caryn's perpetually postponed wedding became a symbol of their inability to move forward. The contrast is telling. The success of Amy and Chris's marriage highlights the fundamental challenges that Matt and Caryn could never overcome. The baggage of the past, the suffocating presence of the farm, and the unresolved family conflicts. Amy and Chris were able to build a future because they were able to separate themselves from the past. Matt and Caryn, it seems, were destined to remain trapped by it. We've explored the family dynamics, the public pressure, and the timeline of events. But to find the heart of the story, we must look at the two individuals at its center. What drives a man like Matt Roloff, a visionary patriarch who seems to build empires and alienate his heirs in equal measure? And who is Caryn Chandler, the woman who stood by his side for nearly a decade, only to walk away when they were seemingly on the verge of having it all? To understand Matt Roloff is to understand the mind of a relentless creator. He is a man driven by vision, a classic entrepreneur who sees not what is, but what could be. The farm itself is his magnum opus, a sprawling canvas where he has brought countless fantastical ideas to life. The western town, the pirate ship, the whimsical structures that have delighted visitors for decades. This creative fire is his most defining and, arguably, his most compelling trait. His ambition was forged in a world that was not built for him. As a little person, Matt has had to overcome physical and societal obstacles his entire life. This has instilled in him a fierce independence and a powerful need to control his environment. The farm is more than just land and buildings. It's a world he built, to his scale and according to his rules. This deep, psychological need for control is the key to understanding both his greatest successes and his most profound failures. In the context of his family and business, Matt's leadership style can be described as that of a benevolent dictator. His intentions are almost always good. He wants to provide for his family, to create a lasting legacy. However, the execution often demands absolute adherence to his vision. We've seen this play out time and time again. This is the central paradox of Matt Roloff. He wants his children to take over the farm, but they must do it his way. He wants to collaborate, but his vision is the only one that matters. This is not born of malice, but of a deep-seated belief that he, and he alone, knows what is best for the empire he built. It was this inflexibility that shattered the negotiations with Zach. It wasn't just about money, it was about control. Zach wanted to be a partner, but Matt was only offering the role of a subordinate, an heir who would manage the kingdom but never truly rule it. For a personality like Matt's, the business is an extension of the self. A critique of his business plan or a desire to change his vision is not perceived as a difference of opinion, it's perceived as a personal rejection. When his sons came to him with their own ideas, it may have unconsciously felt like they were saying, "You are not enough. Your vision is flawed." For a man who has spent his life proving his capability, that is an existential threat. His defense mechanism is to tighten his grip, to reassert control, which in turn pushes away the very people he wants to keep close. When we view Matt through this lens, a pattern emerges. His 27-year marriage to Amy ended, in part, because she grew tired of living in the shadow of his overwhelming vision. She wanted to be an equal partner, and over time, that became impossible. His business relationships with his sons, Zach and Jeremy, fractured for the same reason. They wanted to be partners in their own legacy, not just stewards of his. And this brings us to Caryn. 4 years, their relationship worked beautifully because she embraced the role of a supportive partner. She was his rock, his #1 fan, the person who helped execute his grand designs. But the dynamic of a romantic partnership is different from that of an employer and employee. The postponed wedding, the disagreements over its style and location, these were early signs that Caryn, too, was beginning to desire a partnership of equals. The fundamental, tragic flaw in Matt Roloff's approach to relationships seems to be this. He is a brilliant architect of things, but a troubled architect of partnerships. He can build a dream house from the ground up, but he struggles to build a shared future where his vision is not the only one on the blueprint. Caryn Chandler, after nearly a decade, may have realized that the life he was building was his dream, and she was just a resident in it. And for a woman of her strength and independence, that was no longer enough. If Matt Roloff is an open book of ambition and control, Caryn Chandler is a much more complex and private text. 4 years, she existed on the periphery of the Roloff family story, the efficient and trusted farm manager. When she stepped into the spotlight as Matt's partner, she did so with a quiet grace, but also a guarded demeanor. Unlike the Roloffs, who had lived their lives on camera for years, Caryn always seemed to maintain a degree of separation, a part of herself that was just for her. The transition from employee to First Lady of Roloff Farms was fraught with peril. She had to navigate the icy waters of a recently divorced family, intense public scrutiny, and the challenge of defining her role in a world that was not her own. Initially, she excelled. Her pre-existing knowledge of the farm made her an invaluable partner to Matt, and her calm, organized nature seemed to be a perfect counterbalance to his chaotic creativity. However, this transition came at a cost. She became inextricably linked to Matt in the eyes of his family and the public. When Matt made an unpopular decision, like the farm's sale, Caryn was seen as complicit. She lost the neutrality she once had as an employee. As we saw with Zach and Tori, she was no longer a friendly, impartial figure. She was part of Team Matt. This placed her in an impossible position, alienating her from the very family she was trying to join. In the final seasons of the show, viewers began to see the cracks in Caryn's calm exterior. She spoke more openly in confessionals about the difficulties of blending families, the awkwardness with Amy, and the immense pressure of the constant drama. The dream life she was building with Matt was becoming a gilded cage. Yes, there were beautiful trips, a stunning new home on the horizon, and a partner who clearly adored her. But it came with a heavy price, a fractured family, public animosity, and the loss of her own autonomy. According to the Insider reports that surfaced after the breakup, it was Caryn who made the final call. This was not a mutual decision, but a choice she made for her own well-being. This is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of the entire saga. The online narrative wants to paint Caryn as a gold digger who left when the going got tough. But the evidence suggests the opposite. It suggests she was a woman who reached her breaking point. She chose her own peace over a life of perpetual conflict. She chose to walk away from the dream house, the farm, and the public eye to reclaim her own life. It wasn't an act of betrayal. It was an act of self-preservation. She was the one character in this reality show who decided the price of fame, and the price of admission into the Roloff dynasty was simply too high. There is no greater metaphor for the rise and fall of Matt and Karyn's relationship than the sprawling, custom-built dream house they began to construct on Roloff Farms. It was meant to be their forever home, the physical manifestation of their shared future. Today, it stands as a monument to a love story that ended before the final nail was hammered in. The house was Matt's passion project. On Little People, Big World, he excitedly shared the plans for the 5,500 square foot residence. It was designed with their future in mind, featuring a grand open-plan living space, luxurious amenities, and crucially, accessibility for Matt as he aged. Karyn was deeply involved in the design process, choosing finishes and shaping the aesthetic. This wasn't just Matt's house, it was their house. The project was a massive financial and emotional investment. It was a bold statement. By building this permanent structure on the farm, they were signaling that their relationship was the new foundation of the Roloff legacy. This in itself may have created more tension. For the Roloff children, who felt they were being pushed out of their own heritage, seeing their father build a new palace with his new partner on the land they felt was rightfully theirs must have been a bitter pill to swallow. But even the shared dream became a source of conflict. The show documented disagreements over the design and the ever-expanding budget. While these were framed as typical couple spats, they hinted at the deeper issues. Matt, the eternal visionary, wanted to spare no expense. Karyn, ever the pragmatist, was more grounded. More importantly, the house tethered Karyn to the farm in a way she may not have fully anticipated. To live in that house was to live in the heart of the Roloff world, a world rife with drama and history. There was no escape. As the family conflicts intensified, the dream home may have started to feel less like a sanctuary and more like a beautiful, luxurious prison. The very thing that was meant to solidify their future was now a constant reminder of everything that was wrong. And now the house sits in limbo. Construction has likely halted. It is an expensive, half-realized dream. What will become of it? Will Matt finish it and live there alone, a lonely king in a castle built for two? Will he sell it? Or will it stand as an unfinished monument to what might have been? The house is the perfect, tragic symbol for their entire relationship. A grand vision, a massive investment, and a foundation that ultimately could not withstand the fractures that ran through the family soil on which it was built. It is a house that love started, but that conflict, pressure, and a quiet, desperate need for peace left abandoned. We began this deep dive with a sensational headline, a reflection of the chaotic storm of rumors that erupted after the end of a very public engagement. Big cheat, Caryn Chandler's new boyfriend, Matt Roloff alone. For the past 3 hours, we have peeled back the layers of speculation, examined the evidence, and traced the fractures that spiderwebbed through a reality TV dynasty for years. Now, it's time for the verdict. What really happened to Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler? The end of this love story was not a sudden, explosive event. It was a slow erosion, a death by 1,000 cuts, caused by a confluence of pressures that no relationship, no matter how strong, could likely survive. When we assemble all the pieces, a clear picture emerges. First, there was the weight of the past. Caryn Chandler entered a world still heavy with the ghosts of a 27-year marriage. The complex, unresolved dynamic between Matt and Amy Roloff created a foundation of permanent awkwardness, making it impossible for Karyn to ever truly feel like the sole leading lady in Matt's life. She was always, in some way, living in a story that had begun long before she arrived. Second, there was the farm feud. The bitter and public falling out between Matt and his son, Zach, was a catastrophic blow. It forced Karyn into an untenable position, siding with her partner and, in the process, becoming alienated from his children and grandchildren. The dream of a happy, blended family A core component of the future she was building with Matt was destroyed. Third, there was the inescapable pressure of fame. For nearly a decade, Caryn's life, her motives, and her character were relentlessly dissected by millions of people. She was cast as a villain, a homewrecker, and a gold digger. This constant barrage of negativity, this life under a microscope, created an environment of intense stress that ground her down over time. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, were the irreconcilable personalities. Matt Roloff, the brilliant but controlling patriarch, needed a partner who would support his vision. Caryn Chandler, the pragmatic and independent woman, ultimately needed a partnership of equals. In the end, her desire for peace was stronger than her desire for a place in his kingdom. She chose to abdicate the throne to save herself. And finally, all of these issues were embodied in the unfinished dream house. It was a monument to a future they couldn't reach, a physical reminder of the conflicts and pressures that made their shared life impossible. Its abandoned frame is the most fitting symbol of their entire relationship let's return to the rumors that started it all. Was there a big cheat? The answer is an unequivocal no. There is zero credible evidence to support any claim of infidelity. This was a narrative invented to provide a simple, dramatic explanation for a complex and messy reality. The real betrayal wasn't of a person, but of a dream. Did Caryn leave for a new boyfriend? Again, the evidence says no. The story of a mystery man was pure speculation, a clickbait fantasy. The truth is far more poignant. Caryn Chandler didn't leave Matt Roloff for someone else. She left him for herself. She left to reclaim a private life, free from conflict and public judgment. And is Matt Roloff alone? In the literal sense, he is now a single man. But to frame him as a victim is to ignore the patterns of his own behavior. His isolation is, in many ways, a consequence of his own choices, the result of a lifetime of prioritizing his vision over his partnerships. He is the king of a beautiful, sprawling kingdom, but he is a king who has struggled to keep his family close. In the end, the breakup of Matt and Caryn is the final, messy, and authentically human chapter in the story of little people, big world. For 25 seasons, the Roloff family opened their lives to us. The show was groundbreaking. It changed conversations, challenged stereotypes, and normalized the lives of little people for a global audience. It taught us about resilience, family, and the enduring power of love. And perhaps its final lesson is its most profound. It taught us that reality is never as simple as it seems on television. There are no perfect heroes or clear villains. There are just people doing their best to navigate the impossible complexities of life, love, and family, all while the world is watching. The storybook ending didn't happen, but in its place, we were left with something far more real. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the story of Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler. What are your thoughts on their breakup and the legacy of the show? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more in-depth analyses of the stories that capture our attention, don't forget to like this video and